Well, good evening. It's Monday, November 11th, 2024. Welcome to episode 86 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. And tonight we are going to be talking about the biggest news story from this past week, which is the re-election of Donald J. Trump as the 47th President of the United States. And in last week's episode, I intentionally wanted to avoid talking about anything political, but this week it's kind of hard to avoid the elephant in the room, and this is a very big story, and we wanted to share a little bit of our perspective and give some analysis about what we feel about what has taken place here. And I think it's important not only to express yourself from the standpoint of freedom of speech, but no matter which side of the political aisle that you happen to align yourself with, it is undeniable that Donald J. Trump will go down as one of the most consequential presidents in American history. And I'm excited about the prospect of him returning to the White House. What's your thoughts on that, Rebecca? Are you excited about that? Or
I am. I think it's a blessing that he made it in. I don't think the fight's over.
Right.
But I had more confidence than you did, I think, that he actually was going to get nominated as the president.
Yeah. I didn't nearly have that much confidence for a number of different reasons, but I guess we can explain that a little bit more as we go into it. He's only the second president in history to ever be reelected in non-consecutive terms, and he alone has single-handedly reshaped a very unwilling Republican Party to become aligned with his Make America Great agenda. And that's why he has so much appeal, so much broad appeal with the American people, at least working class people, maybe not the elites or, certain people who have bought into the liberal narrative, but he has a very large coalition of people who have been tired for many years of having politicians talk to us in one way during an election season and then doing another thing. And Donald Trump has been very consistent in his messaging. He's delivered on his message the first time. And so I am actually, I'm enthusiastic about the fact that he's back elected, not quite there yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to take shape over the next 4 years. He's also the first president in my lifetime to challenge the status quo of the establishment. And he's grown his message of populism, gaining the support of the majority of the American people in this last election. And, despite all of the things that he's been, had thrown at him, the American people, I think, in large part, has been able to see through that. And he's also the first president in American history to survive 2 assassination attempts and be charged and convicted on 34 felonies by his political rival, Joseph R. Biden. And he's had to endure a lot of legal challenges, and they've tried to break this dude down. And, despite all of that, he's come back with an overwhelming victory and a mandate from the people having, from the American people, I should say, regaining control of both houses of Congress. And I think that's an incredible feat. And those that are looking forward to Donald J. Trump in the office, I think it's a blessing, as you said earlier, Rebecca. But first things first, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing good. Obviously, we talked about this before, that I grew up in a neighborhood where I grew up on a ranch. One of the places I played at when I was a child was a park that was kind of geared around nursery rhymes. And I have not been to this park for at least 40 years. I was thrilled to find out that it still was in existence. It has been renovated after several storms and whatnot damage to the park. I got to share this time with my, what I have 7 grandkids. I got to share time with 6 of the grandkids in this park, brought back a lot of memories and a lot of time when life was easier, when there wasn't the rich kid, the poor kid, the whatever. It was all about play. Right. And you just got together and enjoyed, built sandcastles or whatnot. With my one grandkid, I did get to take a picture of him with Humpty Dumpty, which was awesome because he looked like he was the original one from 1970.
Yeah. Yeah, that's neat to go back, and it was neat to see, the kids there having a good time and stuff. I happened to go down as well. I didn't spend that much time in the Caper Acres. I wound up coming there after I finished my run. I got in about 10 miles down in Bidwell Park in Chico, California. And this time of year, it is a beautiful spectacle and sight to behold with all of the fall colors. And it's just a really nice park. It was, I believe, donated by John Bidwell to the city of Chico years ago. And I don't know how many acres it actually is, but there's a lower park and then there's an upper park. And there's a creek that runs through it, and there's a lot of neat things recreationally there, and it's a really nice centerpiece for the community and town of Chico. Chico's where you grew up, and it's the size of a city. I don't know what the population is there any longer, but it's no longer a town. It's an actual city, but it got the college that revolves around it where she went to school, Chico State. Yeah. And so, it's a neat little area to go. But that was fun.
Yeah. And amazingly, I would say 2/3 of the play apparatus in there still is the same as it's new equipment, but they kept the story, the Crooked Old Man. So there's the Crooked House and the slides and everything, and the Swiss cheese and all the little nursery rhymes that you can think of that are there. There was only a couple of them that were missing from 1970.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So why don't you tell me, Rebecca, how do you actually feel about the results? Do you have anything else to kind of share about that as far as, your impression of what took place?
I was really hoping that Trump his team had in plan ways to help him be successful about getting into his position. And so I was holding strong that was going on, and Trump was able to not say anything about it, to, in fact, help him, like I said, be successful at getting in there.
Yeah.
They did not waste any time about going after him. They're, and I don't think that they're going to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me rephrase that because I didn't quite come out right.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that they're going to let it be a smooth transition.
Yeah.
I think they're going to continue to fight.
I don't either. And we're going to talk about that here as we move along. But the thumbnail that I put on this live stream states that the honeymoon is over. And it really has come to an abrupt end, if you will, in my opinion, because historically, when a new party comes into power after an election, particularly an election where the winning party has a mandate from the American people, there's generally speaking an inward viewing, or there's some introspection from the losing party, and they kind of give a grace period, if you will, and it's referred to as a honeymoon period. And generally speaking, it's within about the first 100 days that they tend to just kind of back off a little bit with all their partisan bullshit from the campaign. And it's interesting, but that never actually happened in Donald Trump's first term back in 2016. They came out, within a week or two, and they were already aligning themselves to provide opposition to him. And they tried to do that as much as they could throughout his entirety of his first term. And I don't know, this particular election, it seems like it was only, maybe he got like about 12 hours. And then people started coming out and aligning themselves. And for that brief period, it felt to me like a bit of the air had been let out of the room, because I think there was a lot of tension in the country, wondering which direction we were going to go, because the two parties have very distinctly different visions for where this country is going to be headed. And I think there was a lot of tension. And so I just had the sense the following day that it was just almost like felt very peaceful and calm. But I believe that that's also been, kind of short-lived. And I would say this from that is that make sure that you are at the point where your preps are good and you continue to build and fortify yourself and your family for the future. I think that there's potential for unrest. And, let's just suggest that, maybe something happens that we don't anticipate. There isn't a smooth transition. And I think that the Democrats aren't going to let up. They're going to continually throw everything at Donald Trump to make him be unsuccessful in carrying out the wishes of the people that elected him into office. And I don't want to be the only bearer of bad news. And there's been other people that have come out and said that as well. And one such individual is Andy Frisella. Some of you may know him and seen kind of his act on social media, but this was probably within about, it's got to be within the first day or so. I saw this clip that Andy had put out, and it's essentially kind of the sentiment that I have. I'm not as optimistic that this thing's going to just go as smooth as possible.
Well, before you play that clip,
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say that I feel that there was a calming as well.
Mm-hmm.
However, that calming didn't stay too long, because now we're gearing up to make sure that he makes it physically into office.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the calming, and then, you're kind of back to just hoping and keeping your fingers crossed. And
Yeah. So this is a clip from Andy Frisella, and I think what he says has a lot of validity. It's kind of how I feel. And I don't know if there's any of you that will listen to this podcast that might have the same viewpoint, but it's something worth considering, and not just think that everything's going to be smooth sailing. And good evening, Hogs. Good to see you this evening, man.
Between November 5th and January 20th. That's something that people aren't really discussing, because there is no chance that Donald Trump gets elected and then for the next 90 days, everything goes smooth. It's going to be mass fucking chaos. So I think we need to discuss what that could look like. I see them taking extreme action to keep him out of office. I think you're going to see riots in the streets. I think those people that are in the streets are going to be painted as patriots and freedom fighters. And I think there's a possibility that they engage the 15 to 20 million migrants who are here illegally, because they're going to deport you if he gets in power. I think we have a very rough and dangerous and volatile situation for the next 90 days. And I think it's very important to consider the things that could happen.
Yeah, I hope he's wrong. And I hope, some of the pessimism that I share with him is misplaced. I don't want to have to get tapping into some preps because there's civil unrest all over the country. But, if something were to happen to Trump, and that's not out of the question by any stretch of the imagination, they've already taken 2 shots at him. We're taking 2 assassination attempts on his life. And so I don't think that that's the last time that's going to happen, unfortunately. So they are really going to have to up their game. But that's what they can do. But what we can do is make sure that we've got our shit together with regard to prep. So that was kind of my underlying point of playing that video and just mentioning that straight away up front. But yeah. So, there's been so much opposition to Trump. And I think the question that a lot of us might have, and it may be clear to a lot of people already, but there's some people that may have not considered what is some of the reasons that all this opposition to Trump exists. And I think from the standpoint of the people, the electorate who voted against him and that are lining up saying, oh, we're going to leave the country and this is the most horrible thing that ever happened. I think that they have been essentially brainwashed through propaganda, and they've been fed a narrative that he's Hitler and that he's an existential threat to democracy, and that he's going to take away things like a woman's right to have an abortion. He's going to target immigrants. And those things are false, actually. First of all, the abortion issue is a states' rights issue, and it's up to the states to deal with that. Donald Trump's been very clear on that. And he's not going to target immigrants either. What he is going to target, he's going to target fucking illegal immigrants. He's been very clear about that, and he's been very much in favor of immigration. And he's stated that over and over and repeatedly, but some people only choose to hear what they want to hear from the sources that continually lie to them and validate their own preconceived biases. And, that's just one aspect of why people oppose Trump, at least from the standpoint of the average Joe who might vote for him. But what's your take, Rebecca, about some of the other reasons that he might be opposed?
I think that they're really afraid of all of the secrets being exposed, of all of the lies, all of the dirty cheating, and they're afraid of that, as well as the assassinations and who they were actually done by. I think that that's another deep secret,
right,
that is going to be exposed, and they're afraid of that.
Right. So not only do the people, some of the people who've been brainwashed to think he's the enemy, he actually is the enemy to the establishment. He's the enemy of the deep state, because he has made it very explicitly clear that he's going there to drain the swamp. And of course, that didn't happen in the first term because of his inexperience and naivete, being naive. He didn't really understand what he was walking into. But he's now had 4 years to see exactly what the fuck's going on. And I think that if, in fact, he can get back into office, there's going to be some heads that are going to roll. And so the deep state has a lot of opposition and a lot of things to protect and to hide. And so I think it's going to be increasingly more difficult, because there are so many people in federal government that how do you actually root all that out? I mean, that's a good question. I mean, you can start with your executive positions in certain key positions. And I think those people actually have to be absolutely loyal to Trump. He needs to select people who are going to be the director of Central Intelligence Agency and the FBI and his chief of staff and every other key position. He needs to have loyalists in there that he can trust. And those people need to be on board with understanding what his agenda is. And his agenda is going to be rooting out all these fucking people that are going to undermine his ability to do what the American people elected him to do. And so he's got a lot of opposition. And I don't know if you guys have happened to hear his plan. I heard it the other day and I thought, holy shit, man, to come out and say that at this point in time, I would almost waited till I got into office, man, because they're going to be gunning for you. And I don't know if you've heard what his plan is. This is about a 3-minute piece, and I'll play it for you so that you can hear exactly what he's looking to get accomplished. But guess what? The adults are back in town. Daddy's home.
Exactly.
And to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all, and corruption it is. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled so that faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and persecute conservatives, Christians, or the left's political enemies, which they're doing now at a level that nobody can believe even possible. Third, we will totally reform FISA courts, which are so corrupt that the judges seemingly do not care when they are lied to in warrant applications. So many judges have seen so many applications that they know were wrong, or at least they must have known. They do nothing about it. They're lied to. Fourth, to expose the hoaxes and abuses of power that have been tearing our country apart, we will establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and corruption. And there are plenty of them. Fifth, we will launch a major crackdown on government leakers who collude with the fake news to deliberately weave false narratives and to subvert our government and our democracy. When possible, we will press criminal charges. Sixth, we will make every Inspector General's office independent and physically separated from the departments they oversee, so they do not become the protectors of the deep state. Seventh, I will ask Congress to establish an independent auditing system to continually monitor our intelligence agencies to ensure they are not spying on our citizens or running disinformation campaigns against the American people, or that they are not spying on someone's campaign like they spied on my campaign. Eighth, we will continue the effort launched by the Trump administration to move parts of the sprawling federal bureaucracy to new locations outside the Washington swamp. Just as I moved the Bureau of Land Management to Colorado, as many as 100,000 government positions could be moved out, and I mean immediately, of Washington to places filled with patriots who love America, and they really do love America. Ninth, I will work to ban federal bureaucrats from taking jobs at the companies they deal with and that they regulate. So they deal with these companies and they regulate these companies, and then they want to take jobs from these companies. Doesn't work that way. Such a public display cannot go on, and it's taking place all the time, like with Big Pharma. Finally, I will push a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. This is how I will shatter the deep state and restore government that is controlled by the people and for the people. Thank you very much.
Yeah, every one of those is an incredibly transformative policy from the standpoint of a president coming in. I mean, there's going to be some major changes if, in fact, he can, start to put that together. I know he'll be working hard on it. The dude, he's just a constant workhorse. He wants to get things working as quickly as possible, but we're just going to have to see if, in fact, he can get into office, and then what roadblocks he's going to have to, come up against, because obviously he's going to have a lot of roadblocks, including members of Congress, because number 10 is one that I think most Americans would probably like to see some kind of term limit for these people so that they're not just career politicians. Their answer is, oh, well, you can vote me out. Well, that sounds good, but the way that they've drawn up their districts and how they've gerrymandered it so that it really can't be done very easily, it's increasingly difficult to unroot these people, and they just become enriched on the backs of all of the deals that they create behind the scenes, and nothing ever gets done. And I think that politicians should not be career politicians. They should go back into the workforce and be a part of the citizenry. And he's going to have a lot of opposition to that, but I think that's a fantastic plan. I don't know. What do you think, Rebecca?
I think that he has actually started well with having the folks that he's chose to be around him. I think he's got a beautiful dream team, and they've got a lot of finance. And I also believe they probably have a lot of power. So I guess, putting a lot of faith in the fact that they are going to do their best to keep Donald Trump safe. Because that's one of the hugest. Yeah. To carry this all out, I think it puts him at danger.
Right.
For the things that he's listed.
Right. Good evening, Skanes and Albany, Oregon Sky Watchers in the house. Bill Warner, how are you this evening? Dean Mullis, great to see you.
Hello to all of you.
Yeah. So that plan is pretty ambitious, and I really love to hear that. And it's not the thing that I love to hear about it, as I know it's not bullshit. I know it's not just lip service, because he's been talking about that from day one, and he's a guy that doesn't just say shit without meaning it. And the only reason that that's not going to get done is just because of the opposition that he's going to have in an entrenched bureaucracy, and he's going to have a lot of cabinet building and everything that's going to need to take place. But I'm really optimistic, I guess, knowing that we're not going to be headed down a socialist path and a fucking censorship path and a everything other path with another puppet Democrat being placed, at the top of the ticket as our leader. I mean, it's pretty pathetic to think that Harris Walls would have been what would have been representing the United States of America in geopolitical negotiations. I mean, they are a fucking joke, but yet people think, because of brainwashing, that Donald Trump is somehow the more greater of the two evils, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, that's my opinion. That's a very strong opinion, I suppose, if you were somebody who's center left or left winger, but that is my opinion. And I think a lot of people probably feel that way too. I think we feel as though we've been vindicated, knowing that our voice was actually heard in this last election. That said, Trump's going to need to up his security plan. And so let me ask you, Rebecca, should he rely solely on the Secret Service in your opinion? I mean, he's obviously had the Secret Service fail a couple of times now. Pretty.
So in saying that, I would have to say no.
Mm-hmm.
No, he shouldn't, because of the fact that he has been shot or attempted to be assassinated twice now.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to need some other security that he feels that he can trust and be able to work with the Secret Service, and hopefully develop a plan where they can work together.
Mm-hmm.
And
So what you're advocating is essentially kind of like a unified command structure where you've got people that are co-equals at the top that are overseeing and making sure that there's checks and balances that are being met with regard to Trump's security plan. Is that what you're kind of alluding to?
Yes, I'm hoping that if he's got a private security and he's got the Secret Service that's working with them,
Mm-hmm.
that if they're assigned one from each,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can keep each other on track
Yeah.
and focused in protecting the president.
Yeah, I think that's a potential solution. You either need to, restructure the entire organization and start over from scratch, which is going to be very difficult because there's a lot of people involved. But I do think that there needs to be some form of integration from an outside security detail that can be co-equals, like I said, from the top in a unified command structure. And then whether or not, as you pointed out, pairing people up, if we do that on a one-for-one basis, that could potentially, have them working not only collaboratively, but they can also be the check and balance to make sure that the fucking ball isn't going to be dropped. Because let's say the Secret Service sniper just decides in Butler, PA, that, hey, I've got a scope on this dude on the roof, but I'm not going to shoot until he fucking shoots. And then all of a sudden, 2 seconds later, he drops the guy. Interesting, isn't it? I think that's very, very suspect, personally. And we still haven't heard anything with regard to what happened with old Mr. Crooks. And we haven't gotten any resolve to any of that, have we? So, I mean, if I were Trump, man, I'd be like looking at some other options from the standpoint of security. But that's just my personal thoughts on that. Good evening, Josh Mitchell.
I also feel that much like him getting his message out, I feel that there are other things that he has in place that he hasn't exposed. I mean, he came out and he said what his 10 points that he wants to do as far as security,
Mhm.
and it's just a gut feeling on my part.
Mhm.
I feel that he probably already has something in place that we are not privy to.
And that could be very well the case. I mean, I'm not on the inside, so what do I know? No, nor are you. So we're just speculating here. But until we see it, we're not going to know.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're playing the speculation game. But I mean, I'm just sounding off about what my thoughts are as it relates to that. I've been very uneasy this entire time, knowing that they have failed in a very dramatic way. Guy almost fucking lost his life on like live TV. And there's been nothing that's really come of that other than, they've kind of upped the security detail. And they've got some dudes that are 6 feet tall and not, DEI hires, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but even as such, they had that incident out on the golf course. So, I mean, all it takes is one fuck up. And so don't think that there isn't a lot of people that would like to see him not in the position that he's in. Right?
Yes.
Right.
And I know that he loves to be out there with the people and to be socializing. I don't know what they or how they could dress him, because before they did the bulletproof glass, and he didn't always stay right behind it. So
right.
that kind of makes me nervous. It puts him at risk.
Sure. Bill Warner says, I believe that it's going to take a real security detail independent from the government who can see outside the box. I think that, like I said, I think an integrated type of a, group of people who are counter surveillance experts, and we have those that work privately, that are former military and everything, and they're really highly trained and good at what they do. And I think those are the type of people that they need to tap into, because I would not place all my fucking eggs in that one basket. Right. So, yeah, he says he's uneasy as well. I think people should just be apprehensive. And that's why I said earlier, hey, make sure your preps are good, because, just imagine if something happened where Trump was shot and killed. I mean, what would this country do then? I mean, it would not be fucking good. I'm telling you, people would just lose their minds,
Oh, it would be horrible.
Yeah, they would lose their minds. So we just need to hope for the best on that and hope everything's going to move forward, in a nonviolent way. But these people are not resting on their laurels, because that's just how they play ball. Let's move on here. There's there is going to be a lot of politicians who will be looking to politically divide and leverage themselves as the counter opposition to Trump and his administration. And one such politician who is politically positioning himself for a future run at the presidency is Gavin Newsom, our friend here from California, our illustrious executive, Gavin Newsom. And he, within hours of Trump being elected, was calling for an emergency meeting of the California state government to essentially come up with a plan to oppose Trump and everything his administration is going to be standing for, which is law and order and borders and, restoring some civility and bringing some adult conversation back into what needs to take place in this country. And so, he wants to be the one to come out front and to say, hey, I am the opposition. It's merely a grandstand play, because the people of this state probably don't really support that idea as much as he thinks that they do. This state only had 2 million more votes from the standpoint of liberals voting. So that's a huge swing from what it has been historically. And, even in the last recent election, it's a very big swing toward the Trump administration and the Republican policies. And so he's purely just doing that to get his name out there, because he does have those ambitions. And so I don't know, Rebecca, what do you think that Newsom could potentially do to lower the temperature and make this country more united? Because clearly that's not what he's doing when he does something like this.
It's not. And I think he needs to burst the bubble that's around his head, get in a grip of how life actually runs, and what the people want and not what he wants.
Right. Yeah, he's a narcissist, and he's somebody who's only interested in his own, like I said, ambition. He really doesn't care about the people as much as he does about enriching himself and building his coalition with regard to his political party. And so he's going to do and say anything. I mean, he was the guy that was out there saying that, oh, Joe Biden, he's sharp as a tack. He's great. I respect him so much. And he was just being a loyal soldier, saying what he thought that he needed to say, because the party is looking at him for the future. And he's not going to step out and say, oh, this dude's like shot, even though he is. And everybody else could see that, right? Mm-hmm. He's just a political liar. And so,
well, he doesn't even look believable to me when he's out there giving his speeches.
No,
he just stands there and his nose is kind of up in the air. And I personally feel that when he gives those speeches, he's actually looking up above the people.
Yeah.
So to me, he could care less what you think. Mm-hmm. He's just looking above you, and his agenda is what he wants to push, and he could care less how it affects you.
Right. Well, California's actually turning red. And this last election was very much a sign in that direction. And it should be a message to old Governor Gavin Newsom to realize, like, oh man, we've kind of fucked this up, man. The Democrats are losing some stuff here. But see, he's not really worried that much, because he's, again, trying to worry about 4 years from now, and he wants to be first out there. But check this out.
Is shocking. It is showing the votes in the presidential election of California in 2020 compared to 2024. And as you can see, a lot of counties, specifically 10, flipped from blue to red. And out of the 58 counties in California, 32 of them voted for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris won the state by less than 2 million votes. But what's shocking about these numbers is that 22.6 million voters registered to vote this election, but only 10 million cast their vote. Now, are those Republicans staying home because they assume the state's going to go blue, or Democrats staying home because they assume the state is going to go blue? Either way, which way would the state go if those voters got out and voted next election? Despite the numbers in California, Governor Newsom has come out and declared a state of emergency on California values. But when more than half of your state is actually voting for the values that Donald Trump represents, is there really an emergency, or is there an emergency for you when you're up for re-election in 2026?
So there you have it. California's trending a little bit more red. It flipped. It actually increased. Donald Trump flipped it 12 percentage points to his side, to the Republican side. And that's just very emblematic of people actually paying attention. They're actually seeing what's going on, and they're making a choice that's counter to the narrative that's being put out by the Democrats. They're trying to continually push propaganda and lie to people, but there's so many people that are waking up and they realize, you know what, things are not as good as they say that they are. And so Hogg says that he can see, Newsom bringing Kamala back to California for a position. I don't know. That's we'll see what her political future, winds up being. I'm sure she's probably not done. She's probably done running for president, because she's pretty disastrous. She would have to really go back and do her homework and try to figure out how to actually speak to the people instead of hiding like Joe Biden. To her credit, she didn't hide nearly as much as Biden, but still she was not nearly as visible, and she couldn't get her message out. No, it wouldn't have advantaged her, because Trump was so visible and Trump was so much out there and going everywhere to let people know, hey, this is what I'm going to do for you. And I'm willing to speak to not only friendly audiences, but hostile crowds as well. He wasn't hiding, and he's a fucking alpha. He's not going to hide from you. He's going to speak to you, and he's going to express himself. Where she's very scripted, Obama's very scripted, Biden, he's gone, right? He's just burnt.
Yes.
And so all of these people, that's what I think the American people have soured on, is they want a real human being that can actually speak to them on the level that they can relate to. Donald Trump, as rich as he is, he's relatable because he is such a man of the people, and that's what a populist is, So,
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think that Trump probably won more of California than they are actually leading you to believe that he won.
Sure.
I mean, the lie hasn't stopped.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess I would ask you, do you think we could win California?
I think that, yes, California could win, providing they are able to continue to eliminate the cheating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have a graphic here I'm going to pull up, and let's take a look at this. It's pretty informative, quite honestly, because if you look at this graphic, let me freeze it about right there. What you see is Washington, you see Oregon, and you see California on the left coast. And those are states that the Democrats have had a stronghold in. But those are also one of the very few states in the United States that don't require, excuse me, any ID when you show up to vote. So what is the argument from the standpoint of the liberal, the good liberal voter who supports Kamala and is going to go pull their ticket? What would be the argument to say, no, we shouldn't want people to show ID to make sure that actually who's voting is actually voting? What would be the argument against that, Rebecca? I mean, why would they be opposed to that, do you think?
Again, so that they can cheat, so that they can vote numerous times to boost their count. And I honestly, I do think the paper ballot should come back.
Mm-hmm.
I do think you should have to show ID. It should be a photo ID. And along with that, and I remember when I first started voting that you had to give your right thumbprint. And I think that should be part of it too, because you could go in with a fake ID with your picture, and vote.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the other blue states you see there, New Mexico and Colorado, you can see that their status is Colorado's it's a non-photo ID. So you can just show up with any other fucking ID. It doesn't, whatever. And, I guess it could be your Red Cross card or something that you got CPR, you did a CPR class or something. It could just be any old thing that has your name on it.
Credit card.
I guess. And the no ID is down there in New Mexico. All of these states are the ones that the Democrats won. And isn't that interesting and kind of odd to see that discrepancy? So it makes me ask the question, and I felt this way for a long time, because 2 minutes after the polls close in California, they call the state. So if it was actually close as 2 million votes in California, what if they actually showed photo ID? Because obviously the cheating has been going on here in California for a long time. They tried to recall Governor Newsom twice. I think he would have actually been recalled. However, it's California, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a lot of people that don't like that guy. They had no problem getting an ample amount of signatures, overnight, to recall this dude because he's a fucking piece of shit.
Absolutely.
And so I just have felt for a very long time that, your vote doesn't even matter here in this state. And that's the reason why I feel that way, is because of, you don't even need to show photo ID, and they don't even want you to show photo ID. It's against the law now, right?
But think about what it takes to get on an airplane.
And everything else, man. You need an ID for everything else. Now, if you look at these other states, Minnesota, Illinois, no ID. And all the way up the eastern seaboard. See that? All of those are the states that they won. Those were really the only states that they won. And there's some kind of a reason why they win those all the time, but you don't even need to show ID. Isn't that odd? Right?
And those are the ones that she won.
Yes. That's what you see right there.
So yeah, if you had to show ID, a picture ID,
an actual
an actual ID,
right? So anyhow, I mean, I think that we probably might have come a little bit closer than 2 million votes if we had to actually validate, your citizenship and who you are, and you have a right to vote, right? But they don't want that here for whatever reason, because it hurts people's feelings.
So it would be interesting to see how many illegals actually did get to vote.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure that there was plenty.
Of course. Yeah. So the reasons, I guess, that Trump won this time, there's a number of different reasons, but what's your opinion, Rebecca, as far as what took place this time? Because you were optimistic. I was not. I was a little bit reserved, thinking that, you know what, it's probably going to be the same outcome as last time. And I think it was because I hadn't realized what had actually been taking place, because we don't live in a swing state. But what's your thoughts on why he won this time?
Well, I think they really pushed to get out and vote. I know I listened to Ramaswamy, who had actually said that he was not for the early voting, but this time around for Trump, that it was highly important to get out, get your vote in, get counted for. And I know that his daughter-in-law, she was a fast study, but they tried to, like I said, get the message out to vote, make sure they could eliminate the cheating. And they had vetted a bunch of attorneys who were more than happy to actually donate their time, volunteer their time. They only paid like 10% of the attorneys who were in there to make sure that the machines were working right, to make sure the machines were recalibrated every single day. And like I said, to eliminate the cheating, they were all overseen.
Yeah, I hadn't realized that they had really upped their ground game, because I, live in a state where it's not even a consideration as far as it being a swing state. But essentially, I had heard that very recently on PBD, and Laura was on there talking about what they had actually done. She's the co-chair of the Republican National Committee. And they had their shit together this time. They had a much better ground game. Trump had a much better media approach. But what they did is, to your point, Rebecca, they eliminated a lot of the cheating that probably occurred in the last election. And
initially, when Trump asked his daughter-in-law if she would be co-chairman, she had said no, because she has a lot of irons in the fire of, her own interests. But when she was tucking her kids into bed, she started to think about, well, if I turn this down, what am I doing to them? I need to accept this to assure that they have better going forward.
Yeah. Bill Warner says the Dems have insulted the working class for so many years that they have soured on the ideals. That's why people came over to him. I mean, they were counting on the black vote, right? If you ain't voting for me, you ain't black. And then Obama coming out and trying to berate black men, grown-ass men, he's standing up there trying to chastise with his old uppity ass. And, that they're just not having that. And so there was a big shift in all demographics, whether they are Latinos or, all ethnic groups came out to support Trump because they saw through the bullshit. And it's just no longer resonating. And unfortunately, they've had so many people that are of quality caliber actually walk away from their party. RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, all used to be liberal Democrats or Democrats. I don't know about how liberal, but they were all Democrats. That was the side they aligned with. And look what's taken place. Look at the shift that's occurred. And see, there's no introspection from the Democrats at this point looking forward or looking inwardly. They're actually looking at blaming other people, and they're starting to try to, attack already. And I think people are just tired of that bullshit, man. I know that I am. I just want somebody to get in there and do what they said they're going to do and get to work and stop hanging out on the fucking beach.
Yeah.
Trump ain't going to be on the beach, man. He's going to be in that office early in the morning and late at night. He's going to be all over the fucking world, shaking hands and making deals. And that's what American people elected him to do. And that's what he's going to do. And so, provided he can get in there, right? So,
this is what I refer to as his dream team. And I think it's absolutely awesome who he has around him for the support and coming from different parties and obviously switching over, but that's not initially where they all started.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, united we stand. That's what it's about,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's the fact that this election turned out in the way that it did, it really restored my faith in the process. And I just, they pulled a fast one over on us last time, guys. And then when we were questioning it at all, they told us, hey, you can't say that. I said that on this channel when I had a guest on. I was talking to him, and I expressed my opinion with regard to that election. And I was summarily had that video removed and taken down. Not to say that this won't get taken down, but here's something that I have going for my favor that will get the message out there that is pretty hard to dispute. Take a look at this right here. Yeah, some things actually do look better in black and white. So in 2004, John Kerry got 59 million votes. And let me replay that, if I may. Let's go like right there. And we'll go like that. And then in 2008, first black president, Obama, came on the scene. Oh boy, people are excited. There was 69.5 million people that turned out. And then in 2012, Obama, on his reelection, a little bit less interest. He was back down to 65.9 million people showed up and voted for him. And then in 2016, your favorite rock star from the Clinton Foundation, Hillary Rodham Clinton, came out in 2016 and had 65.9 million. That's weird. Same as Obama, right? Mm-hmm. So the Democrats came out very consistently in both elections. And then all of a sudden in 2020, with COVID and all of that, right, and all the mail-in ballots and everything that was going on during that period of time, and Joe Biden actually never really campaigned. Remember, he'd come out and he'd stand on his little circle and there'd be about 30 people in the thing with masks on. And that's what we got from Joe Biden. And all of a sudden he got 81.3 million votes. That's a big jump, man.
That's a big jump. But, when you've got a bunch of boxes with the ballots that you can.
The odd part about it is that, remember, Trump was leading when they told everybody, oh, hey, there's a glitch in the system. The machines have gone down or whatever, and you guys go to bed, right? And so everybody kind of went to bed, and then they woke up, and it was like, what the fuck? He's winning now? That was weird. And so people had question about that, right? And then this past election last week, the numbers went back down again. They're not up around 81 million. Maybe it's because they're less enthusiastic about the Biden-Harris agenda, or maybe it's just because there was less actual cheating in the places that were the swing states. Because if you take a look at what happened in the swing states, the 7 swing states, she didn't win any of them. Trump swept them. But that's because of the ground game and the infrastructure that had been put in place to make sure that actual cheating wasn't occurring. So I think there's been some level of faith restored in the process, and hopefully Republicans from this point forward can move their ground game even stronger, because that's where Republicans have lost in years past. Is the Democrats are so much more organized. But it seemed as though this time they were in disarray, and the Republicans had their shit together with regard to the media, with regard to the voting infrastructure, with regard to all of it. And they never were able to get off the ground with their campaign. Turns out they raised, over $1 billion.
Crazy amount of money.
Over $1 billion. And now they're like 20 million in the hole. They've overspent themselves, which is very, on par with how Democrats actually behave. It's actually on par with bureaucrats, how they behave, not just Democrats, because it happens on both sides. But the beautiful part about it is that you've got some businessmen in Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who is yet to be named to a cabinet position, but I can almost assure you that he will be in there. And my take and what I think he would be fantastic at is a Secretary of State. So we'll just kind of see how that all plays out. But he's a sharp a sharp cookie, and they're all businessmen. Isn't that interesting? That's kind of the way it should be. We shouldn't have career politicians that are just got their hand in the fucking the lobbyist's pocket, and it's just this revolving door of corruption. And so, I'm optimistic because the bench for the Republican Party is deep, you guys. There's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of up and comers with JD Vance, and there's just intelligence there and sense. And so I'm extremely optimistic seeing what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. We'll just kind of see how it all plays out. But those numbers do not lie. However, I think that there was some lying going on in 2020. Would you not agree or disagree?
I would agree. So when you said they do not lie, I think there's some lying in there.
Right. Yep. Let's see here. So let me get caught up a little bit on some of these. Hogg says that he believes that also more people voted in person. I just think people were very enthusiastic about coming out and supporting. I think there was a lot more enthusiasm on the right, and people voting for Trump than there was the other side. So that's awesome. Dean says that he had to show ID to vote, and the woman that asked knew my name from high school. Yeah, that's cool, man. I mean, they don't do that here. I mean, I actually a couple of times ago we said,
would you like to see our ID?
Yeah, and they and it's like now it's actually like kind of like against the law. I should have just pulled it out to just be a dickhead, because this lady was fucking sour. She's a Democrat. She was a Democrat. The lady that was asking us, and she got all snappy and shit when we didn't bring our ballots or whatever. And I'm like, no, we didn't bring our ballots. Well, did they mail you one? I said, yeah, they mailed me one. I didn't fucking ask for it, so I'm here to vote. And she's like, oh, well, I got to do this. And, she had to do something other than what she wanted to do. And she got us a little provisional ballot or whatever the hell it's called. And we voted.
We were supposed to take in our mail-in ballot if we didn't mail it and surrender it. Right. That was the first time we'd ever been asked that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, she had attitude, but
yes, she did have attitude.
She was,
and that was just the start of the day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Bill Warner says he had to show picture ID, even for early voting. I was impressed. First time I've had a chance to vote since moving to Tennessee. Yeah. And Salatin, I've heard some mention of that. I mean, I wouldn't think that would be, I think that'd be a great choice, man. Joel Salatin, Running Wild, says, you talk about Salatin being in the administration. Yeah, I think that'd be cool, man. Yeah, he'd love that, because he's a guy that loves he loves the camera, and it would just enrich his ass. But he's a good dude, man. He's done a lot of good things from the standpoint of regenerative agriculture. So that'd be awesome. Yeah. Yeah. A capitalist economy cannot survive without a shrewd business model to work from, says Bill Warner. I think that's quite true, man. The United States government should operate like a business. It's because that's kind of what it is, right? The only difference is that this business can continually run up debt. They can fabricate money out of thin air, and that's not really how a business works. But it should be run a little bit more fiscally responsible. And Republicans used to actually talk about that. But somewhere along the line, all of those swamp monsters that keep coming back term after term after turn, right? Your John Cornyn's and your fucking dudes up there that are just sitting along the sidelines, just waiting for their opportunity to lick boots, right? It reminds me of Schumer before he got into his leadership position, but you'd always see that little snaky bastard, behind Pelosi or off to the side when they'd be up saying something important to the American people. And they're just back there just waiting their turn. And it's the same on the Republican side. You've got these entrenched politicians who just keep coming back year after year after year. And I don't fucking trust any of them. They need to be thrown out and get new fucking people in there.
I'm going to still say that.
But hey, Texas, do what you do, man. What?
I'm going to still say that Schumer reminds me of the Grinch when he's like slithering in. He comes down the chimney and he slithers in around to try to get the. Yeah, that's Schumer.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a man. He's something. Yeah, I think another reason why Trump actually won this time is because, check this out. Remember in 2020, I already brought this up, but they said go to bed. Well, they couldn't really do that this time because there's so much more alternative media covering the election results. You had Patrick Bet-David and, Megyn Kelly and just all these independent podcasters doing their own thing and doing their own election analysis. And they stayed up all night, essentially to say, hey, this is the result, and they couldn't just, oh, hey, the lamestream media is going to go to bed, guys. And then everybody's like, well, okay, I guess we're going to go to bed. Things have changed dramatically as it relates to information flow. And the mainstream or legacy media is becoming much more irrelevant moving forward. And the more voices that we have that are out there speaking to people, whether it's a nothing channel like this, or somebody who actually garners hundreds of thousands of views. I think it's important that we get out and we share our thoughts and we exchange ideas and sound off. That's the First Amendment, guys. And I think that we should try to, do our best to speak our mind.
Isn't it interesting that the last election, it took a ton of time to find out who won?
Yeah.
With this one, we knew the night before, like it used to be.
Well, yeah, but I think it was because it was such a decisive victory. It was a pretty overwhelming, landslide thing. The media couldn't even come out and spin it in any way that wasn't like, oh, we got our asses handed to us. They got their asses handed to them. And I don't think
that had to give you a good feeling.
I don't think it was a surprise to the insiders. They kind of saw this coming, right? What's interesting is that so many liberals actually thought, they were surprised. Some of them had tears rolling down their face. Oh, I can't believe she lost. And this is terrible. And Trump's Hitler. And I'm going to lose my right to abort my fetus. And
I'm going to shave my head.
Yeah, I'm not having sex with men. Well, that's probably not something that most men are going to have a problem with looking at you. I mean, that's, you can buy your own self dinner as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I don't know where they're going with that whole movement thing, but that just shows how they're just childish. They're throwing a tantrum, and instead of just they're going to make a statement by shaving your head and not having sex. And then you post all over social media so people can look at me. I'm just this thing that doesn't interact with the opposite sex and I'm going to punish them. No, it'll be okay, man. It'll be okay. There'll be plenty of other good women for dudes to find. You're probably not the right type anyhow. So don't fret yourself. Plenty of betas for you to, tap into. Mm-hmm. Another reason, and this is a big reason why Trump won this time, is because there was 4 more years of media lies and failed policies that they got to see from the failed Biden-Harris administration. I mean, it just hasn't worked out, guys. When you have open borders, flooding illegals across your country, rising crime, harder to put food on the table, you've got just rampant inflation, you've got conflict surrounding this administration because they lack the ability to exercise diplomacy in a viable way to avoid wars. Instead, they actually encourage that sort of thing where they're profiting from the deaths of soldiers. I think people are just getting tired of that. They're getting tired of, this whole transgender shit being pushed on people culturally. And then if you don't agree with it, then somehow you're the bad person. People are just fed up with it. And they got 4 more years to see that. I think it was actually a blessing from the standpoint of Trump being able to get some things done and waking more people up over the course of that 4 years. The problem with that, Trump not getting consecutive terms, because obviously now he's going to have both houses of Congress to get some things enacted and get some things accomplished and pushed. He's now more informed about what needs to take place. He's not nearly as naive. He knows what he needs to do, and he's gonna actually make some shit, happen this time. But people had the ability to just witness what's been taking place over the past number of years, and I just think that it's been a blessing. The only blessing that is not a blessing, or the only thing that's not a blessing, is all of the illegals that are here now in that 4 years, and how many people have lost jobs, how many entrepreneurs have had to struggle, and people had to struggle. That's and
the crime.
Oh yeah, everything, man. I mean, it's all been a negative from that standpoint. But you have to look at the positive, and the positive is Trump's now more wise. The people are more educated. People are waking up, and the institutions that used to wield and hold all that power are becoming less relevant because people are moving away to other sources of information or media. And they're opening their eyes and going, these fucking people are actually telling us the same thing every 4 years, but gosh, they always just go back to the same playbook once they get elected, right?
Well, that happens on both sides.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said that Trump has single-handedly reshaped and redirected the Republican Party, because if Trump didn't come along, think about where we would be. We would have people like John Cornyn and whoever the fuck else is out there, Marco Rubio, right? I mean, whatever, dude. I mean, maybe he's a good dude, but that's all you can do is be a fucking senator and a bootlicker for the government. Let's get some people in there who actually know how to run a business with intelligence. We have people like that in this country that are citizens, that know what it's like, not just somebody who's grown up around government and in Washington. Those people are corrupt, man. Yeah, they're on your side to some extent, but they're not on your side that much, because think about all the things that have taken place and the things that they haven't gotten done, and the bills that they have put their name to just so that they could get a little pork back to your district, even though all the other shit that's attached to that bill is driving up the deficit, and it's not really what the American people want. So I'm just, I don't know, man. I just think that people are moving away from that, I hope. And this immigration thing is going to be interesting, because you can't really easily unring that bell when you're talking 15 million or whatever that's been invited into this country. But we'll see.
You can't, but that should be interesting to see how they handle that. I definitely think that Trump is going to jump right in and try to get it accomplished.
Yeah. I heard that too, Hogs, that I think that they paid a lot of those people. That's where a lot of that money went. How do you spend that much money in that little bit of time and just blow it? I mean, I understand advertising is going to eat up a lot of that, but I'm sure they paid Oprah, and they paid this Cardi B, whoever the fuck that is. I've been hearing her name.
And Taylor,
some other people, right?
Yeah, all the stars that came out to try to get people to come to her rallies.
Right. Let's see what Running Wild says, that as of now, word is Massey is Secretary of AG, and Salatin is one of his 6 picks under him. Man, I tell you what, Robert Massey, that dude he's a fucking legit. I like that guy. And I didn't really know much about him because he's a politician from another state, and I don't know about him, but I happened to hear his interview on Tucker, and man, he is a legit dude. He's like not an insider. He's an off-grid dude that built his house, and he's super smart. And that would be like amazing to get him in there, because I would love to see that guy doing something. He's not going to be one of these swamp monsters, Yeah. So there's been a lot of things that have already happened. And Trump isn't even in office. I think it's pretty amazing. But right out of the gate, he appointed the first female White House chief of staff in the United States history. And, of course, this is the guy that, just surrounds himself with dumb women, according to liberals. And, he's a misogynist and all these other things. And I can guarantee you this, that he didn't appoint this person because of her gender or her color or her anything else or her hairstyle. He appointed her based on meritocracy. He appointed her because she's somebody who he has trust in and faith in. And so that's kind of how appointments should go. But, obviously it doesn't happen that often on the left, right? They come out and, hey, I'm going to put this person in this place because they're black or whatever. And so it's great that he did that, though. I'm excited. Sounds like she's somebody he really feels strongly about. And, I think he's got good judgment, at least from people that he's had a history with. He's made some really shitty picks over the years, but his first term, he didn't really know what he was doing. He was just thrown into this, and you got to make all these cabinet appointments. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll take Jeff Sessions and John Bolton and Pompeo and all these people that are getting recommended to him. And he just, what do you do, man? You got like 5,000 appointments that need to happen. So anyhow.
Yeah, I think he's got a better idea, and he's got people around him who are actually suggesting certain people, and he's taking their advice, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like overnight, the Dow, the NASDAQ, S&P, and Bitcoin soared to a new all-time high. And the latest migrant caravan has decided that maybe it's not such a good idea to head on into America. And, my understanding is that they've begun turning around and heading home. And also, I heard that New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced it would stop giving free debit cards to migrants. That's a new development.
Imagine that.
Yeah, and Hamas says that it wants an immediate end to its war with Israel. Yeah, good looking out, man. War is not cool. And then Trump has already spoken to President Zelensky from Ukraine and Russia. I actually heard Putin come out and say, yeah, he's looking forward to being able to have a dialogue about the war. And I think that's a very positive step in the right direction. I think both Putin and Trump have mutual respect for each other because both of them are alpha males.
Yeah.
And they both, are strong individuals. And they know probably that either of them is not really to be fucked with, but that they're gonna make some things, have an understanding about this and that. And I don't, they're obviously not buds, but it's pretty interesting.
Are you sure?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, they tried to get that narrative going. Yeah. Also, the European Union is considering replacing Russian oil with exports with oil from right here in the United States. So that's pretty cool. And the Taliban has reportedly said that they want to, quote, start a new chapter with the U.S. Maybe they remember when Trump, called their leader and sent him a satellite picture of his home and said, I will annihilate you, if you don't comply. So that might be a little of the impetus there, but and I think China as well has come out and said that they want to have a peaceful coexistence with the United States. So I think it's really awesome. Some of the appointments that he's come out with. Most recently, I just heard that he picked Tom Homan, and Tom's, he's made the rounds. He was at the RNC. He worked for Trump before. He was his ICE director, I believe. And this dude's no fucking joke. He's I believe going to be a great pick. I think he's going to be respected by the people of the agencies, and that's what they're looking for is leadership. And I really found it quite awesome to hear, a no bullshit answer, not dancing around the fact that, hey, people are going to have to go home, man. And I'm not going to apologize for that. But that's what the left has done for years. Oh, you're separating families, and oh, look at this poor child over here, and they're going to be childless and shit like that, right? They've tried that all the time. Which
is ridiculous because the immigrants were shipping their kids over here without parents as well. So, they themselves were doing it.
Yeah. Well, that's the argument that they make. But here's how he responded to that when he was on 60 Minutes.
A way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
Yep. Families can be deported together. The adults are back in charge, you guys. That's fantastic. That's like I mean, who needs to apologize for that? You're here illegally. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's not talk about you being a migrant or undocumented. No, you're fucking illegal. You're an illegal alien, and you're here, and you need to go home. And I think that's fantastic that they're not at all being apologetic for that. It's just what needs to happen. That's what the American people voted for. That's why people came out to support Trump. It's not like this is a surprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been saying this since 2016 and before that.
Before that, he's been saying that. Like I said to you, he's been saying that since he was like 22 years old.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. So they should not be shocked. Hilltop Blues, good evening tonight. And he says, who was the Democrat that said they had the wrong person as their candidate? I think they're all saying that now. But I think it might have been, I think I heard somebody saying something about Pelosi was having that conversation or whatever, but she was behind all of this, man. She's the reason that Biden got, summarily dismissed. She was part of that cabal, from what I understand, her and Obama and whatever other top leadership, been taking direction from their donors. And she was like, hey, you got to go. So, I don't know.
Talk about somebody that needs to go.
Well, one of the reasons my understanding, yeah, she does need to go. One of the reasons my understanding is why they settled on her, probably a couple of reasons. One is because, the Democrats have hung themselves out on identity politics, so you've nominated this black female. And so for you to put somebody else in there at this late date, wouldn't look very good, because they've essentially said, hey, we want a black female in this position, and then she's in that position, and she's good for second in charge, but now she's not good for first. And
all she is a placeholder so that they can continue to control. She's just, somebody they can put out in front and say, Well,
same as Biden. He's just a placeholder, right?
Yeah, he was a placeholder, but she was the first female president.
She would have been potentially. But the other reason, and I think this is even a bigger reason, is that they would not have been able to utilize the money that they had already raised for the Biden-Harris reelection campaign. The hundreds of millions of dollars that they had already accrued, they couldn't have used if they had put a new candidate in there. So they were kind of bound to utilize those funds that they had already, accrued for the candidate. That was another big factor right there. So yeah, they're going to come back and second guess that, I guess, all day long. But I don't know. It is what it is. I'm glad it turned out the way that it did. Only, if nothing more than just to see liberals fucking, lose their mind, Yeah.
Yes. Lose their mind. I think they've long since lost their mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Trump is, he's come out and he said some things that I really tend to agree with. I think the majority of the American people agree with, and we will just see moving forward. There's going to be a mounting campaign in opposition on the legacy media, if you will. They're just going to always, but that's how they're going to actually sell commercials, is having a boogeyman, right? And they're not going to stop with this messaging of, oh, look at Trump, look what he's doing. He's going to do this, he's going to do that. But as I've said for many times on this broadcast, is that's what Democrats are doing, is they're just projecting upon you that which they are doing. And so all of the things that they say Trump's going to do is something that they probably either have done themselves or are doing. So they're just going to continue with that, I think. But here's something else that Trump has made a point to talk about. I also hear that he has come out and said that he's going to sign a reciprocity bill for concealed carry, which is fantastic, right? So if I go to another state, I can go and not have to worry about, oh, well, this state has this where I have to take my gun off and put it in the fucking trunk, or put it in the glove box, or put it on the seat, or whatever their rules are. But California does not honor reciprocity for other states. Do you know that?
I did know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So people coming here, if you got a concealed carry in another state, you can't conceal carry here. But if he signs a bill, I think that's fantastic. It's a constitutional right, you know?
Sure does make traveling a lot easier.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. Also,
didn't he, I have to say this because I don't know if it was something I heard and it wasn't true, but didn't he jokingly offer to pay for Kamala's campaign deficit?
yeah, I don't think that's a joke. He put that out on, I think, Twitter or Truth Social or something. But yeah, I mean, he's a master at trolling. And he was just, he's obviously trolling her, but because they're not going to take him up on that. I mean, maybe if they did, he'd probably, hey, here's some money, but I think that's funny. I think it's funny.
It's like putting the sword in and turning it.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's something else that, makes me think that the adults are back in charge.
This country should be telling its children that they were born with the wrong gender, a concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today. My Department of Education will inform states and school districts that if any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations. I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Pretty hard to argue with that. I mean, from my standpoint, but we were just talking a little bit ago about that. And it's interesting how some, there's been a lot more people in recent years that have all of a sudden had these kids that want to transition. I mean, that was never a thing when Rebecca and I were growing up. And I'm sure for some of you, that wasn't something that was commonly talked about or even anything you ever heard about. But now it's almost like for them, it's a way to virtue signal and to show their wokeness. It's like driving a Prius or a Tesla, right? For them, oh, I'm a fucking driving an EV. I'm helping with climate change. I'm doing my part, but I'm also raising three transgender. I can't even say it. Transgender children.
See? It doesn't just happen to me.
Oh man, I couldn't get that out. But yeah, it's interesting, man, just to think like what is going on with that. It's only in very recent times that this sort of thing has become more out there and widespread, I suppose.
If you're a female and you decide that, hey, I'm really a male trapped in, or I'm really a male trapped in a female's body, but you still want to date females, why don't you just say you're a lesbian?
I don't know. I mean, you can talk to Bruce Jenner and see what he has to say about it. I have no idea. I don't know what goes on with people's sexuality.
I'm sorry. I don't understand. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
We're just not enlightened enough.
I know. I'm too old, I guess.
Yeah, we're just not woke. Yeah, I honestly, guys, for a lot of reasons, I think we dodged a bullet there. And I feel very good about the current state of things politically. And I hope everybody else does as well. It's just amazing to me when you see who they actually trotted out there as the candidates, both from the standpoint of presidential and as well as vice presidential, where you had this Tim Walz guy who, was coming out saying JD Vance was weird. I still laugh at that. That goes back to that projection that I was talking about. He's the weird one, but yet he's saying the other guy is the weird one, Yeah. And JD Vance is actually anything but weird. I've listened to a few of his interviews and he's a very seemingly engaging and seems like a regular dude you could sit down and have a beer with and shoot the shit with or go fishing with or hunting with. And he just doesn't seem like he's faking it. Whereas Tim Walz. Oh, okay. Right on, Bill. Tim Walz, he shows up like he's going to go hunting and shit. It's like you got to project this image of something that he's actually clearly not. But I was listening to his wife, and I don't like picking on people's wife or whatever, but man, she is an odd duck too. Every time she opens her mouth, it's like, what in the hell? Who is this woman? But anyhow, this is what we could have had as a second lady, guys, for the next 4 years had people not come out and voted appropriately. So.
You heard me. We cannot and we will not give up this fight. That's right. Come on. Come on. That's right. We cannot and we will not give up this fight. That's right. All right, you can sit down now.
Whoa, she's pretty cringeworthy, man. I mean, that's some odd behavior right there. But yeah, I guess we dodged a bullet on that one, huh, Rebecca?
Reminds me of Talladega Nights. I want to be second lady.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, so I did have a did you know for this week, because we're kind of getting down to the wire here, guys. And I wanted to play this for you. I thought there was a couple of interesting did you knows in this deal. So give this a listen.
Still used today and where they originated from. During World War II, American soldiers who were based in Italy would often order coffee espresso, but many of the Americans found it to be too strong for their liking. So then they would water the espresso down for the Americans. This became known as an Americano, which simply means American coffee in Italian, and it has become massively popular around the world today, especially in the US. In the late 1800s, the US state of Illinois banned the sale of ice cream sodas on Sundays. To get around this ban, soda fountains began serving just ice cream without the soda, which they called a sundae. This clever workaround is how the iconic ice cream sundae got its name. In 1770, when Captain James Cook's voyage landed in modern-day Queensland, Australia, he was mesmerized by an animal there. He tried asking the natives what they call it, and they said ganguru, and the word evolved through time in English to what we know today as kangaroo.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. The Cafe Americano, that's something that I typically get when I go to like Starbucks. If I go to Starbucks, I don't really appreciate their coffee much. I don't really like their business model. So I try not to get coffee from them. I'd go local if I could. But if I'm fucking desperate and there's a, Starbucks available, I'll get a Cafe Americano. That's usually my chosen drink there with a little room for cream. But yeah, I didn't even know that. So that's an interesting little factoid, I thought.
So next time, you want me to ask it for European style?
Yeah, I guess. I guess. Yeah, they're kind of neat. I enjoy them too because, there's a lot of things you hear and you just don't know the origins of them. So I can kind of appreciate those as well. Did you have anything else you wanted to kind of talk about tonight, Rebecca? Or I think
we've covered a lot actually tonight.
Yeah. I'm just really, really fortunate. I think I'm feeling somewhat relieved still and cautiously optimistic that Donald Trump's going to get in and really make a lot of headway with things. I would like to see him choose somebody like Tucker Carlson. I think would be a fantastic press secretary. It would just be amazing to watch that. It would be so entertaining because he's so good at what he does as far as berating people who are fucking stupid. And he does it in a way it's very lighthearted. So that's my choice for that, but we'll see where he goes with it.
Yeah. I have to say that out of all the presidents, if there was one that I would say that I'd want to meet, he's the one that I would say, just because I think that he's just social and he would just be an everyday person and not be a snob.
He'd be pretty cool to hang out with, I think, couldn't have a beer with him. He doesn't drink. So, maybe
did you see
maybe a hot dog or something?
Did you see where he was talking to a gymnasium of kids and he was telling them, now repeat after me. I will not take drugs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's good mentorship right there, man. You got to set the right example, but see, he's not just talking it.
I will not smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
He goes, I'd like to tell you that you will not drink, but just don't drink very much. Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. No, he's, I'm excited about the next 4 years and grateful that our country has chosen, in what my opinion is the correct choice. And so it's just kind of a big relief, man, because I was really, quite honestly, very disheartened over what happened in 2020, because I'm not fucking blind and I'm not stupid. And no matter how long you tell me that what I saw, I didn't see, and that it's been through all these court cases and it's, nothing's come of it. Well, we know that the system is filled with corruption, and, smart people that are discerning can make up their own minds about what's actually true. And so that's kind of where I stand on that. And I think I'm a little bit vindicated actually in the way that I felt about the 2020 election by seeing the discrepancy in the votes this time. I think that was pretty telling. And it's just been a great week. So I hope everybody else has a fantastic week moving forward. And we're going to get out of here. But before I do, I'm going to leave you with this one last little clip. And it kind of summarizes and it goes along with what we have been talking about all evening, which is mostly politics from this past election. And, unfortunately, I think the honeymoon is over, but, things are moving in the right direction, and we'll just hope that Donald Trump can get in office and do the things that he's going to do. Right?
I don't think it phases Trump at all.
Yeah, I don't think it does either, man. He's a very interesting person to be able to withstand everything that he's been able to withstand. It's incredible, I think. But nonetheless, I'll leave you with this, guys.
One of the toughest, most resilient human beings that I have ever met in my life.
First off, this photo just won the election. I saw this and I can't even describe how I felt looking at this. Unbelievable that in a moment where he didn't know, because you can't even imagine, right? You imagine yourself getting shot. You imagine the adrenaline of recognizing, and you've got blood coming out of your ear. And this man comes to his senses and realizes that he's got to be the bravest person in the room. And he just pumps his fist. He just pumped his fist, and whoever captured that photo, my goodness, take every photography award.
The guy takes a shot at him, he goes down, he stands up, and then he starts chanting to the crowd and fight, fight, fight. I literally was blown away.
When he stood up after being shot in the face, bloodied, and put his hand up, I thought at that moment, he was no longer just a political party's nominee, or a former president, or a future president. This was the leader of a nation.
The amazing thing is that prior to the shot, if I had not moved my head at that very last instant, the assassin's bullet would have perfectly hit its mark, and I would not be here tonight. We would not be together. I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God.
He is one of the
pretty fantastic, guys. And I'll have to leave it there. But good night, all. And thanks for joining us this week. And, we'll be back next week with something to offer you. But you have any final thoughts, Rebecca?
Just good night to all of you, and have a great evening.
Yeah, for sure.